Hi guys, welcome. For those of you that are like, what's with the music? When we were doing sound check earlier this morning, Timmy played that and I was just cha-chaing and I was like, that oddly calmed me down. So now apparently it's my walk-up music, so, which makes no sense to the workshop. Oh my goodness. All right, guys, so if you were here for Jen's workshop, I know that she gave you guys a bit of a directive. Can we please fill the seats up here? I'm like really short and this is really tall, and so to speak out over there is just, a horizontal challenge for me. So, no, a vertical challenge for me. So, can you guys come just a bit closer to me? Thank you. That's so good. Thank you, that makes me feel better, guys. Okay. Welcome, you guys. I am just so excited to be here to talk with you guys today. And I think what excited me the most about talking about Generation Z is the fact that when we first started to dive into this topic, the information that we learned punched us in the gut. And I'm not excited to punch you guys in the gut. That's not my personality. But really, it's a chance for us to really show to you guys that our job to partner with you parents and to equip you guys is God-called. It's an anointing, and it is our joy to be here with you, to equip you so that you are ready to face your children and steward them, because you are the anointed steward of each of your children. And really, it is a joy to be alongside you guys as we walk through this journey together. For those of you who don't know, I actually studied infant and child development. I also studied developmental disabilities, and I eventually earned a master's degree in counseling psychology, where then I later practiced as a child therapist and a family therapist for several years before taking a break to raise my kids. That was not my career plan. I was going to just go all the way with the therapy world, but then the Lord decided to bless us with twin babies when our oldest child was not quite 2. So we had 3 kids under the age of 2, and all of your reactions right now are the appropriate reactions to that statement. It was rough. But in that time, I got to really spend that time just understanding my children and owning my role as their mother. I've been serving in the nursery at ResKids when they were 1, and then by the time the twins hit kindergarten, that was when I was asked to join staff here at Resonate, and I've been working in ResKids ever since for the past 5 years. You guys, I love my job. I love it. I love gospeling your children. I love that I get to gospel my own children on Sundays as well. And I also love that I get to be here with all of you to stand in your village and do this thing together as we raise our kids. I think it's really important for you guys to know that your ResKids leadership team, we are in your village and we are with you to equip you, but you guys are in our village as well. So this is how God designed our church body. This is the family that He created, and just what a blessing that we are able to do this together. All right, so our team started to read this book called Generation Z Unfiltered. It's written by Tim Elmore and Andrew McPeak. It's really, really good. I highly suggested you guys read it, and we'll go over it today. When we were reading this book, we realized that the things that our children are going through and experiencing are mind-blowing. It was a shock, it was alarming, and I was immediately hit with conviction. Because if I, someone who has studied and is studying children for the past 20-something years, if I didn't know what this generation is going through, how the heck are our ResKids parents gonna know? So we knew that we had to get this information out to you guys. Okay, what is so important about these kids is us understanding that we are no longer living in our Gen X/millennial world. Our children are in an entirely different generation that we don't quite understand. I'm a parent of some Gen Zers also. Those babies that I was talking about earlier, they are now 12, 10, and 10. So I am in the thick of it with you. I learned this information just this month, like you're learning it right now. So I am also bumbling through and trying to make a different mindset in my parenting tactics. Okay, let's just dive in. Who the heck is Generation Z? These are the kids who were born between 2001 and 2018. If your babies were born after 2018, that's totally fine. You're gonna be ahead of the curve, which I wish that all of us had. Our children in this generation, they are so unaware of what the world was like when we were growing up as kids. They don't know how we existed without technology. Let me share a story. My daughter, when she was young, she loves art, and she had this toy where it's like a plastic tile with raised edges, and you put a paper on it, and then you turn your crayon on the side, and rub it over the paper, and then the images appear, and then we color it, and it's so cute. So in a moment of bonding with her, I tell her, I had a toy just like this when I was your age. And she looks at me baffled, and she goes, you had color crayons? And I'm like, yeah, Mommy had color crayons. And she's like, but how many colors? All the colors. I had all the colors. And she goes, I didn't know you had crayons in the 1900s. I'm like, did she think I went to the garden and plucked flower petals and mortar and pestle made a paste to like paint colors on my pictures? The kids don't know what life was like pre-technology. I want to show up another slide about generational differences. So this is really, really telling to see how the shift in mindset has happened across the years. Let's take a look at the role of work. The builders at this point saw work as a means for a living. Scroll across and see what Generation Z is thinking of it. It's my hobby. Do you know what a hobby is? It's optional. To go from work being a way to survive in this world to, if I feel like it, I'll do it, is very, very telling about this generation in particular. And it kind of speaks to something that Generation Z kind of feels like when they're asked to put forth effort in any way. So I'm gonna put a scenario out there, and if you understand or relate to it, just raise your hand. How many of you are met when you ask your child for any tiny bit of effort or work, like brush your teeth, do your homework, make your bed, finish your book report? How many of you are met with whining, complaining, rolling eyes, or the reaction? Look at our village, see? We are each other's people. This is something that just really goes to show how much this generation doesn't value effort or work. Look at relationships. Generation Z sees it as utilitarian. That means if it makes me happy, I will choose it and I will pursue it. So those of you who are married or who have been married, how much work is involved to maintain your covenant marriage? A lot. And this generation doesn't want to put in the effort when things get tough. So, where is the grit? As a whole, this generation is lacking across the board. Our kids don't have grit. Now here's gonna be my first gut punch to all of you, but I'm punching myself as well. They don't have grit because we didn't teach them how to have it. I know. In a decades-long nationwide study, there were two main emotions that parents felt when they were raising Generation Z, and lack of grit plays a role in both of these. Frustration with their kids and fear for their kids. Let's tackle frustration first. Okay, the social and cultural influence of technology. Good old tech, right? No surprise, these guys have a heightened addiction to technology. It is all-consuming, and it is everywhere in their world. When my babies were born, or when I was born, my parents took a picture of me, and they developed the film, and then they saw it a few days later, and I put it in my baby album, right? When my babies were born, snap a picture, straight to Facebook. Everybody needs to see that they were born. They were born into technology being so essential to our lives. Now, because of that, they have a preference for the virtual world over the real world. When I was growing up, and you guys as well, our greatest influencers, besides our parents, were our friends, right? Our peers at school and our peers like in after-school programs. For our children, they also have the influence of their peers, but they also have the global world via social media apps. So now instead of us competing with attention from their friends, we're competing with the entire world who they can access from their screens. A 17-year-old man-child who plays video games all day on YouTube makes $1 million a year. Guess what both of my sons want to be when they grow up? A YouTuber making a man-child. YouTuber playing video games for a living. The influence of social media apps is massive, and it is increasing our fear of lack of control over our children. The other thing that we are frustrated with in our children is that they are avoiding adult responsibilities. This generation across the board, and a little bit in the generation before also, less and less of them are getting their driver's license at age 16. Less and less of them are having their first date by the 12th grade. By the time they reach young adulthood, they are less likely to live independently and to move out of their parents' houses. Right? There's a quote from this researcher and educational generational researcher, and she says, "The whole developmental pathway has slowed way down. Today's 18-year-old is acting more like a 15-year-old, and today's young adult in their 20s is acting more like a teen." You guys, this is not good news. We are increasingly frustrated with our children for a lack of grit, for their disinterest in giving effort anywhere, and that they are delaying their independence into adulthood. Despite all of these overwhelming impacting factors, there is something that is motivating our parenting even more, and that is fear. We are in a state of constant worry over uncontrollable factors with fear over our children, and it makes sense. We grew up in an era where America's Most Wanted was all over the news. Missing kid pictures were on milk cartons. Sensationalism in the media was really beginning in our generation. So our brains are wired to fear the outside world. We have 24/7 news when we were growing up, and even until now, on terror and school shootings and cyberbullying and drug addictions, human trafficking. Now, while all of these things are serious and they are possible, they are statistically unlikely. However, it has affected our parenting style and how we parent our kids. And so now we are going into paranoid parenting. Yay, us. If something isn't 100% safe, it's dangerous. I must protect my child from danger. There's a quote from the authors of the book that I mentioned earlier. "So many of us take all those uncontrollable fears and reduce them to one target we feel we can control, our children." Let me share with you a story, just air some of my dirty laundry, about my oldest son, LJ. So he's 12 years old, and he was going to his best friend's house after church one day, and his mom calls and says, "Hey, are you comfortable if the boys walk from our house to McDonald's to go get lunch?" Instant panic. My baby walking down Fremont alone with just his friend? What if the bad guys get him? What if something horrible happens to him? What if it's so hot outside and it's scorching hot and he's gonna dehydrate and he'll end up in Milpitas and he's just gonna be screaming and crying for his mama? Did you see the rabbit hole and how fast I went down and got there, you guys? That is the epitome of paranoid parenting. Now, for those of you who don't know my oldest son, he is a very capable kid. He is smart. He's got a sharp gut instinct. He can feel the Lord's discernment in him, and he is known for keeping himself and his friends safe. I had an irrational parenting moment. So instead of going into and feeding that paranoid parenting moment, I called my husband, who is still unsure, but he's a lot more grounded than I am. And so we decide that we are going to trust our friend's parenting decision for their child, because they thought it was okay, but also that we're gonna trust our kid, that we are gonna show our child we trust how God made him and what he is capable of. Now, most importantly, I had to remind myself that I trust in the Lord's sovereignty over my pretend control. I want to have a little turn and talk moment. So if you guys can just make a little grouping of like 2 or 3, however you are sitting, and I want you to think of what is one of your paranoid parenting examples. We all have them. And fill in this blank with each other. Now, before we break up into little groups, remember this is a safe place. We are the village. We're going to listen without judgment. We all think it. So have a little minute to make a little tiny grouping, and I'll give you maybe 2 or 3 minutes to share what your paranoid parenting moment is. You can make a little foursome. All right, let's do another minute, wrap it up. All right, 30 more seconds. All right, you guys, I know you're really getting into this, but thank you for sharing. And the reason why I had you guys do this moment is because I wanted us to all see we are not alone, okay? We all have this way of thinking, and we all have things that sort of inhibit us from learning how to trust our children and most importantly, trust the Lord. So I heard a bit of what you guys were saying, and I'm like, y'all my peoples, okay. All right, so the other fear-motivating parenting tactic that we do, removing roadblocks and hardships. You guys, we struggle to watch our children struggle. It is so difficult for us to do. And what is so crazy about this is it's all over Scripture, where Jesus tells us that our life is going to have struggle. And yet, for some reason, we think that we have the power to remove it from our children's lives. We can't remove it from our own. Part of the reason of what we're trying to do is because we want to make a smoother road for our children than the ones that we went on, right? So we want to have easier access to things and how hard we had to work to get there. So what we do instead, because we can't remove any struggles or hardships, is we control and we micromanage their daily lives. Instead of climbing the apple tree to go get the apple for a snack, like, I'll take it, let me wash it, and I'll peel it, and I'm gonna cut it, I'm gonna make little heart shapes because that's your favorite. I'm gonna put it on a BPA-free plate in green because that's your favorite color today. Yesterday it was blue. And then I will put it on a tiny little table that only your body can fit at. That was a detailed description of my parenting moment when my children were very, very young. Or what about our children helping with household chores? Have you ever watched your kids vacuum? Not only do they not get the edges or the corner of the house, but that row of cookie crumbs, which is why you told them to vacuum to begin with, they hit like every spot but, and then brother runs by and they chase brother and it's like the vacuum's running, like lying down. It's like, I will just do this myself, get out of my way, and let me get this before the ants come tomorrow and then we really have a problem with mom's attitude. Or how about loading the dishwasher? Have them put their dishes away. How is that bowl gonna get clean, facing up with spaghetti still in it? Like, there's just no point. Let me just do it. If you want it done right, you gotta do it yourself. Show of hands, who has thought or ever said out loud, it's faster if I do it myself? We think and we say these things, and yet we also wonder why our children can't do basic chores that we mastered when we were much younger than them. Okay, gut punch. We are frustrated with our children because they are unable to do something we didn't take the time to teach them to do. Did you catch that? So what we're mad at and protecting on our kids is something that we didn't do ourselves. We didn't do our part first. We go through painstaking lengths to remove bumps in the road. We're so afraid of the big bad world hurting them, right? Like LJ's gonna get hurt going to McDonald's. And we're afraid to watch them suffer. Oh man, if they fail that test, it's going to crush him. If they didn't make that team, it's gonna break her heart. If he doesn't get into his first choice school, he will never recover. We don't just stop with the household chores and things like that. Let's talk about school. How much are we trying to make their accessibility to school so much easier for them? We monitor them doing their homework, we correct the homework, we check the homework, we fix the homework. Do we do the homework? When we're looking over the problem, it's like, oh, it's 11 steps on that last step. She added the one instead of subtracted. I knew what she meant to do, and she's got to get ready for her practice right now, so I'll just do it for her. She can't afford that bad grade. Or what about our older kids? If on the laptop on the kitchen table there's an application that's 3/4 of the way filled out, just one more question to answer, but they're so tired, it's SAT time, I want them to rest, or like, let's have them some screen time that they haven't had in a long time. I'll just fill it out really quickly. I know what they want to do, I know their goal, I know what they mean to say, I'll just complete it real quick. Who just applied for that position? Was it our kid, or was it ourselves? We are doing this thing out of fear, but we're calling it protection and support and love. And what's so confusing is that we totally want to protect our children. We are called to support them. We absolutely love our kids. But parents, we went too far, and we have become the helicopter parents that we swore we would never be. Let's go back to this slide of grit. Where is grit? Grit is taught through suffering with God. These are the Lord's teaching moments for them to know where He is. How are our children going to learn where discernment of Him steps in and when they're supposed to apply it? God uses hardships and bumps in the road and a slightly less smooth process to achieving a goal. He uses those moments to show our children what their real human capabilities are and where they end and where their dependence on the Lord is supposed to begin. Jesus promised that we will face suffering as well. We can't remove it, like I said earlier. Protection is a part of discipleship, but protection is not discipleship on its own. We need to allow our children to experience the Lord in the suffering that they will face. There's a quote that the authors of the book that I keep referencing say, "Kids are naturally anti-fragile." Do you know what that means? God designed our kids to be sturdy, resilient, smart, and capable. In our parenting tactics, we are trying to derail what God designed in our kids. The omniscient creator of the universe, He knew every bump that they were gonna face in their path. It is a shock to us and them, but it's not a shock to our Father. He equipped them perfectly for what He knew that they would be facing in their lifetime. Because we can only predict and assume in like paranoid parent what could happen, He knows. And He equipped them perfectly in heaven before they came into our arms to be able to tackle that with Him. He's a good, good Father. And He loves our children far more than we could. So what do we do? This is the most anxious, restless, nurtured, tech-savvy generation of entire humankind. We have to meet them where they are to make connections with them so we can help them to make connections to our Father. Now, the book goes into 9 challenges of the parenting generation Z. I wish I could spend more time going over them in more detail, but I can't because I knew this was going to take a lot of time. So I'm going to go through it quickly. If you are interested in exploring what the tools are, the practices, and the ways to help you change your mindset, please read the book. It's really thorough and it's really good. It is recommended by the ResKids team. But let's go over these challenges. The first challenge, number 1. Our kids are empowered by technology. It's literally at their fingertips all the time. They can watch YouTube to solve a math problem when they're stuck at school. Now, the problem with this tactic is that as our brains are watching the YouTube video solve the problem, neurons in our brains are firing at the same time, and our brains think that we just mastered that skill as well. But what's gonna happen when our kid goes to school and they're taking a test and the problem shows up? They didn't have a hands-on application to do it, and they're not gonna be able to perform. So doing something in the virtual world or watching it is not gonna count the same as actually being hands-on and doing it. For this, maturation comes through application. Challenge number 2, prescriptive leadership. Our children have so many things to do, and not only are we giving them a task to do, but we tell them every single step on how to accomplish it. First you do this, and then you do this, and then your goal. What's gonna happen when they enter the workforce and their boss gives them a task? Is someone gonna hold their hand and walk them through every single step to get there? No. What we're seeing in young adults these days is that they're ill-equipped in their workforce because they're waiting for someone to show them the next step. Even Netflix tells us what to do next. Like you're watching a show and then it stops and it's like, suggested shows to watch kids, and it's like, okay, like we don't need to think anymore. We need to give them back the opportunity to think. We need our children to be in the problem. Give them a goal, but let them decide how to get there. They're gonna pick the wrong path. They're gonna pick the one that's slower. It's gonna drive us OCD parents bonkers to watch them go the harder road, but they need to go the harder road so they know to pick the right one the next time. Challenge 3. Ooh, entitlement. Kids have access to things that we had to earn. My kid, LJ, has a cell phone simply because he's the oldest child and he walks his siblings home. He didn't earn that. That's just birth order. For us, we had to show, like, I'll save up this much money and then you meet me and like all these things that we had to do. But kids just get it. Entitlement occurs when someone doesn't comprehend the big picture and they have not experienced life's normal hardships. So to combat this, we need to give them responsibility to produce and contribute to the big picture. For this, maturation comes through production. Challenge 4. Our kids have way too many options. There are so many things that they can choose to participate in. And this generation is all about that FOMO, fear of missing out. So they want to say yes to everything. Now, to be fair, we kind of have this same problem, where we want to say yes to everything also. They don't have boundaries and they don't have margins. We need to teach our children how to prioritize. I know you were offered 7 things that you are qualified to do. What are the 2 or 3 things that are actually going to get you towards your goal? And say no to the rest of the things. The world will be okay if you're not in everything. Margins are God's way of creating space to be with him. Teach them that necessity now. All right, challenge 5. These kids are stuck in self-centered thinking. Narcissism is on a rise in this generation. They are convinced that the world revolves around them. But does our home revolve around them? Are they taking the fact that they are the center of our households and thinking that's how the world operates as well? We need to show them that they have a place in a larger story. So to combat that, we need to realign them that the world revolves around God. And that starts with us. Are our hearts centered around God? And is he the priority and number 1 space? Because when he is number 1 for us, we will lead our children with him number 1 over them, and they will understand that we are not revolving around our little precious princess. We are revolving around God, and that will make this world challenge easier when they see that the world is not revolving around them either. Maturation here comes through clear direction. Direction begins with him. Challenge 6. Our kids have access to so much, but they are accountable for so little. We need to show them what the workload is like in our households. Show them the process that it takes for us to get from work to dinner on the table. Like, I know you have 5,000 projects due right now that you told me about last night. It's hard right now. I'm gonna need your help. Let them feel what we are going through in the household and then give them some responsibility to help you. Let them help you. I know how annoying it is to spend 5 extra minutes to flip that bowl in the dishwasher upside down so it can actually get clean, but teach them that skill. Maturation comes from conviction, knowing the burden, and cooperation within the home. All right, challenge 7. These kids are so anxious. How many of you sat in on Jen's mental health workshop earlier? Yeah, those rates are alarming with anxiety, right? And where this comes from, kids need a clear and identified, stable identity. They have that in Christ. They are looking for who they are, what they are, how the world makes sense. And they're doing it in a generation where it's so fluid. Their identity is fluid. Like, think about what the kids are learning about in school right now with gender, right? It's not just boy or girl, it's what you feel like. And kids are becoming increasingly anxious without knowing who they are. Teach, remind, affirm, nurture the truth that above everything else, they are a child of God. Challenge 8, opportunity without resilience. You guys, let them fail, okay? Let them experience hardship. Let them struggle with the Lord. How are they gonna know how to feel his discernment when the times get really tough? Let them learn grit. The last challenge, consumption without reflection. Our kids are bombarded with knowledge from screens and from their friends, and just the way the world is now. Knowledge is coming at such a fast rate, and they don't know what to do with it. I know how annoying it is for us to hear, "I'm bored," right? But a child's brain needs boredom. Boredom is a space for them to process the information that they're learning about, to digest it, to reflect on it. And so if they need that space for boredom, let's teach them to spend that boredom with God. Teach them how to do quiet time. At the end of school, they just got so much information from school. Let them have a space to be quiet and just let the Lord do his thing. And this is gonna be a shocker, but in their quiet time, parents, we are not invited in that conversation with God. We don't want to do a prescriptive parenting moment where we're like, okay, open your Bible and then get your journal and then read this prompt. What is he saying to you? Write it down. No, God doesn't need our help here. Let your children sit in quiet. Let them be bored. Let them learn to be okay and to rest with God. So that was a lot of information. And I know that wasn't easy because my stomach was like, oh, that sucked. But let's land this thing on a gospel truth, all right? God is sovereign and in control. He is omniscient. He is powerful. If the God that created the entire universe, like you guys, the stars stay in the sky because he told them to, right? He created our children. And not only did he create every hair on their head, every skill that they're going to have, and every character and personality that they are going to have with them to be the perfect reflection of God's image, he also created the path that includes all of the struggles. So I want to read from Jeremiah. And I love this scripture. And I think what just really blessed me when I was writing this talk is this is the first passage that my oldest son ever memorized. And he goes to it frequently. And I just thought it was so beautiful for God to meet me in this way that this is the scripture that I want to share with us today. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. He knows everything. We pretend that we know things and we actually don't. We're predicting and we're reacting to what could happen. But God knows every single detail. He equipped our children perfectly for it. He is with them. What I really want to share with you, and like my prayer for all of us, and myself and my husband included over our own 3 children, let's surrender our fake control and let's exchange it with the Lord for his sovereignty. Can we just trust in that? Can we rest there? God is just so patiently waiting for us to receive that grace of a gift. So why are we choosing to get ourselves all crazy with the control stuff? How about instead we take our cue from parenting our kids, take some quiet time, be with him, and confess, I'm trying to control things and I can't. I'm gonna lay this at your feet, God. Will you give me trust in you that you have got this because you're sovereign and you're in control? Our children are in his hands. Did you catch that? His hands, not ours. The kids will be okay, and so will we. Thank you. All right, you guys. Thank you. We have 10 minutes left. So you are free to enjoy your break a little bit early, or I'll stay up here for any questions that you guys might have. So if you want to go and go pee right now, like go ahead and go do that. But if you have any questions, like let's open the floor, and if I can, I'll answer them. Yes, Christine.
Can you repeat the name of the book?
Yes, it is. Can we pop the book cover up on the screen? Same, right? I'm like, hey, tech people. Generation Z Unfiltered. It's very well done. Our whole team just dove into it, and it was a blessing. Now, this is a guidance, and it's a tool. It is not a solution. I heard Pastor Ryan talk yesterday also. So let this be just a guidance for you to shift your mindset and how you think.
So let's say, like, if you try to instill grit in your child, they see everything else and not all the other parents. Like, they see how other kids are being parented, and like, you feel like they're being treated unfairly.
Oh, totally.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
You're
Yeah, we ruin their lives every day. Yeah. Yeah, no, we suck. Yes. Yeah, so the question was, how do we help our children to learn grit and experience grit, and then they compare themselves to their friends, and then we suck because we're ruining their lives because we're going to teach them grit instead. I go through this a lot in my household with my 3 kids. We live in a very affluent school district, so children at our school have a ton of stuff. We are not affluent, and so we have that fair conversation all the time. And what I tell my children, and this is not Miss Danielle speaking as a ResKids leader. This is just mom to mom and dad. This is how we do it. But we just tell them that there are skills we want them to learn so that being an adult is easier for them. And I'm not going to say that it's not going to be easier for your friends who are whatever in their households, but out of my love for you and our way that we're going to parent you is we want to equip you so that you are just going to be better prepared for what's to come. Because more things are coming. I know that your life is just atrocious at 8 years old, but believe me, the roads are going to get bumpier as we go along. So that's how we do it in our household. They're not going to accept that answer, and that's the other thing too. They're not going to accept your answer. Know your truth, say your truth, and just stand behind it. They will understand later in life, like I did at college, calling my mom, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah, that took 20 years. Yes?
So I think in the front of the presentation, there's a chart, right? And then,
Generational chart.
yeah, so there are, lots of difference between myself and
Yeah.
generations. So how do you motivate them in terms of, I think part of it is that lack of effort, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, when we try to kind of help them to do the right
Yeah.
way, they want shortcuts. They don't want to do
Totally.
the steps and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Just even
Yeah.
for the math problem.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Step 1 to step 5.
totally.
Doing all the steps.
Yes.
So, I think, when we try to help them, they think we're making their life difficult. Do you have any
Yeah.
tips and tricks?
I actually do. So the question was, how do we get the kids to put in the effort when they don't want to? Just spoiler alert, they're never going to want to. They're never going to choose that in anything. And so what we do is we really believe in natural consequences. And we don't allow things that we call currency in our household, so screen time is all the currency we have, but they're not allowed access to it until they complete certain things. So we have a chores list that has to get completed before the Wi-Fi is released. And so, did you make your bed? Did you do the dishes? Who's on dish duty today? Vacuum that cookie crumb before I lose my mind. Those kinds of things, they can't access what they want to access until they've played their part in the household responsibilities, right? So that's going back to that one challenge where it's talking about show them the bigger picture, let them understand the burdens that we feel in running our households. And same with schoolwork. Now, I know that in our culture, right, the bad grade is I don't know, a 4-letter word. Let them get the bad grade. You rushed through your math homework. You wanted to call your friend or go to your baseball game instead, but you missed that one step, and now that 11-step problem is incorrect, let them get the bad grade. And that's going to teach them next time, we should spend some more time then studying and trying. So that's a big part of letting them learn the grit, letting them struggle and suffer. Let them experience the consequences that they earned. Yeah. Wendy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things that we're talking about today is very behavior.
Yes.
So how do we modify them
Yeah.
without, and also balancing the two?
Totally.
Hard and whatever.
Yes. Wendy gave me the biggest gun shot just now. Yeah. No, that is a fantastic question. So how do we meld the two between shepherding the heart versus these behavior modifications, right? Everything has to come from the heart. So if we are expecting of our children to get the good grade, right, that is a behavioral goal that we have. But if we are going to invest in what their heart is experiencing and where their heart is with the Lord, that is a very different goal path for them. So what I would say to start at the very, very bare minimum is to make sure your goal for your kid is a heart issue and investing in it that way. Then from there, then we talk about what they're doing in their day-to-day life. So for example, with like household chores, right? The lesson for having them participate in household chores isn't to clean the house. It's just a wonderful benefit. But the heart goal is you're a member of this family. And this family needs to rely on each other so we can make our family function together. And so the heart connection is out of love for your family, as God designs our family, we're going to care for our home as one and be one body within the home. So it's not that they do their chores, it's that they love our family enough to carry your equal portion of the burden within our home. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
You know, you said access to technology. So we try to limit, you know, but it's so much part of their generation.
I know.
And I'm thinking, like, should we just, you know, let them, go with it? Are we doing more harm by keeping them from buying the Nintendo Switch or whatever kind of thing?
Yeah. That's a super fair question. It's obviously going to depend within each household and how your kid operates and what they can handle. So we have friends whose children can handle like an extra hour of game time and screen time and like be decent human beings. And then we have my children where if they pass that hour, I got a bunch of buttholes in my home. So like you have to figure out what's going to work within your household. So I would say there's a recommendation of how much screen time your child should get. Start smaller, and then if they can earn screen time, because screen time is a privilege, then they can spend that privilege time with the screens and doing what they want to do with that time. But if they are whiny or complaining or disrespectful, then you know what, the screen time is going to come down. And what we tell our children is, we're having a hard time managing our respect right now. And I think when you play screen time, your respect level goes down a bit. So we're going to reduce the screen time until your respect level can go up. And you're going to have to do that trial and error thing with your kid to see what they can handle. Because you're right, we don't want our kids to fall behind in technology because this is their generation. It is operating on tech. So we don't want to inhibit them in this way, but we want to make sure that they are emotionally able to handle what screen time is going to do to their brains. And that's trial and error. And I hate trial and error because it's so hard and it's like takes forever and you just have to keep failing until you land. And there is no cookie cutter answer. You're gonna have to see what works in your home. But that's the mindset to have. I think I can take one more question. Yes. Yeah.
I think there's just so boundaries of things out there, and then, I mean, like you said, the kids talk to each other. It's like, I have this water bottle,
Yeah.
I have this device, and
Yeah.
you don't have it. I mean, just, I think it goes back to what you were referring to, right? Like, there's a lot of things that we have to earn, and then we don't have
Right.
abundance of
Yeah,
our generation, which now this is a norm.
totally.
I don't know how to
Yeah. So she was asking to speak a little bit on entitlement. Like, how do we teach, to combat entitlement? Some friends of ours have this really great tactic, and I want to do it. We haven't yet, but I wish we could, where they were saying in this talk that to combat entitlement, we need to give the kids the bigger picture, right? So entitlement happens when they have less hardship experiences and they don't understand the big picture. One of our members of church with their children is they will take their children to compassion something. Thank you. And they did something in San Jose where they would have children experience what your contribution to a compassion child, what they experience. Where are they sleeping? How do they learn school? And so they walked their kids through the process. This is their home. This is how they go to school. Those are the shoes that they wear. And they have their children go through the experience of what it's like to have less to give that bigger picture. Our picture in Silicon Valley is so unrealistic when compared to the world, right? And so give them the big picture world experiences to understand that. Have them volunteer for the street ministry, where we're going to be giving meals to our street friends out there. This tent is their house. And let them realize what the big picture really is to help shape their heart to realize how great they actually have it and to start building gratitude for what they actually have. Okay, my red timer is on, which means I went over. But I will stay around during break time if you want to talk to me, like when my mic is turned off. So I'll be here, but thank you for your time. Again, it is such a joy for us to just be with you and to shepherd with you on this journey. And we are the village, you guys. We are raising this crazy generation together. So thank you.